It's me, good friends.
You make him sick, you will. Behaving like that. There's only one way to eat a brace of conies.
Imagine all these Russians.
What's it doing? Stupid fact, Harold. It ruins it.
Welcome to Sonic Bytes, the freewheeling conversation and interview series for the eclectic music lover. This week, we talk about why artists cover songs and what makes a good cover. From Whitney Houston's cover of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You to Lemonhead's cover of Simon and Garfunkel's Mrs. Robinson, we pick out the best of the best and the worst of the worst and uncover the surprising importance of covering songs over time. What do you think about songs being covered by other artists? Drop us a comment on YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram and let us know what some of your favourite cover songs are. If you're enjoying the podcast, it would mean the absolute world if you could follow us on Spotify, Anchor FM, or Stitcher, or like our videos on YouTube, as it goes a long way to helping the show and allowing us to make more freewheeling content. We hope you enjoy it. Bob Dylan, freewheeling.
Are there any other things that are freewheeling in music? Free jazz?
Free jazz is very freewheeling. I was freewheeling. Oh god, I had a guitar lesson this week from a fantastic teacher called John Morelli, who's played with people like Ginger Baker, and he's played with B.B. King's bassist. He told me.
How old is he?
And he's 63. He said. He said he's obviously been playing a while.
Not sure if that should be publicly disclosed information, but sure.
He played me some of his free jazz stuff that he did sort of 20 years ago, and it's very freewheeling. Like, it's just all over the place in terms of like rhythm and melody and the whole lot. It's like interesting, it's fascinating to listen to, but it's like way out there, sort of not in. If you're used to listening to commercial music and then you listen to free jazz, it's kind of like it just disobeys all the rules that you that have been built into your head over the years.
Yeah, it's like listening to like A Love Supreme or Bitches Brew by Miles Davis, and then you're just like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
this is. It sort of breaks some rules, but you just can't comprehend it at the time, you know.
Yeah,
it's like me.
I feel like every time I do it, like I feel like my mind was kind of like this, you know, with like the filter of like commercial music, and then like you get free jazz, and it just sort of whoosh, and like it just opens up like what's possible to record musically, and it just you
can play a sharp four over a tonic chord and just stay there.
Yeah, just for the whole, for like 5 minutes, it's fine. Because it's free jazz, man.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, these are some of your first guitar lessons as a self-taught musician, right?
Yes, they are. So it's really interesting to have someone sort of, considering I've got a really sort of, I call it like a bastardized version of sort of musical theory, and kind of, like as you would if you teach yourself sort of things. Like, so everything's kind of, it makes sense to me. But then to sort of have someone else explain it in another way is really interesting as well. And obviously just to give, to offer 40 plus more years of experience, 38 years of experience more than I've had, which is really, really nice as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a difference between like just learning how to play an instrument and trying to stretch yourself beyond what you've already learned. There's like two totally different teaching styles in this.
Exactly. It's kind of like if, say, I've been playing guitar for about 11 years now. I started when I was 14. Just over 11 years. And like all of that is a color. Like if the whole thing is red, for example, or like, and all the stuff that I learn is red, then no matter how much I learn, like it's always going to be red. There's loads of different shades of red. There's loads of different ways you can use red. You can mix red in different, quantities of red, etc., etc. But like it's still only red.
All the hues.
Whereas, and you've got all the hues of red, all the colors. Blue's my favorite color. All the colors of blue. But then if someone else comes in, it's like, oh, by the way, there's this thing called like green. And you're just sort of like, oh my god, like what?
My god.
Like there's a whole other color that you never that like I wouldn't have been able to conceptualize had I just stayed red the whole time,
Fair,
or like if you were moving in 2 dimensions the whole time, and then someone's like, oh, by the way, there's depth as well, and you're like, oh my god, like there's stuff, I can see things like in 3D kind of thing. It's that sort of thing, which is really cool.
There's always more to learn.
There's always more dimensions and more colors to uncover, and more things to add to your creative palette, so to speak.
Yeah. Anyway, has that been the highlight of your week?
Well, we had quite a nice highlight as well, didn't we? We've recorded and released a gig for Speak Out
released
Sessions.
at the point that we released the podcast. Yeah, so we would advertise this gig to you, but unfortunately, it's already happened to the future you. But yeah, we did record a gig in the basement for a live stream, which is raising money for Black Minds Matter, the charity, and I think the UK version of it. I think there's a version of it in the US as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just giving a free support to Black communities and Black individuals on mental health, which is a really great cause, I think. And it's nice to be able to do something with music that's kind of directly trying to support that type of thing.
Yeah,
so,
and even more so, it's just nice to do something with music, to actually play a gig. And the fact that to me that was absolutely fantastic, and the fact that it was for a good cause as well kind of made it even better. So it's sort of a double whammy of of good feels.
Hopefully people can still access it even after the date. They can just pay the.
I think the festival's on for 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, they can just pay a $5 and watch it in the future. Maybe we'll drop a link.
Yeah, we'll drop a link in the description. So if you guys want to have a listen to our gig that we did with the wonderful Bex and Cheyenne, then make sure you check it out. It's really, really good.
Yeah, we'll link them in the description as well.
What else have you been up to this week? Anything else?
I think was
that your highlight?
Yeah, that was the highlight of my week. Like literally playing music with other people in this weird, just the weirdest time to be a musician of any sort.
Yeah.
And I'd say another one I've been listening to loads of new music this week, just like digging into that Another Sky record even more. And it's so much to uncover there. But I think another highlight of my week is finding did I tell you? I did send it to you. There's this cover of "Still Feel Like Your Man" by John Mayer.
Yes.
But out of all people, by the group The Temptations.
Yeah.
As in
that was
The Temptations, as in my girl.
Yeah.
So
My God, Temptations.
Oh, it was hilarious. I thought that was. I came across it, and I think I came across it in like a John Mayer fan group, John Mayer Bond, but and I just found it so funny because they're not a group that you'd think would still be around. I looked into it a bit further, and they still have one person from the original lineup in the band. I forgot his name, but from the original group, The Temptations.
The original 1960s Temptations.
We spent so much time just admiring the amazing music video to My Girl.
The grasping at the quick, grasping of air Temptations.
Can you do it for the camera, please?
Huh? What's the line in it?
I got so...
Yeah. It's like, I got so much honey, the bees envy me. It's like grasping at like imaginary honey.
It's incredible.
What a video. What a song.
We need to start the show with that or something.
We need to bring,
Even there's nothing to do with cover songs, which is what we want to talk about today. But, Unless that, did they even write that song? I don't even know.
I think it's interesting with like a lot of the Motown stuff because depending on the artist, they were given a various amount of creative freedom. Like I know that Stevie Wonder, when he was Stevie Boy Wonder, he was allowed to write his own songs. But a lot of other people, they're like it was more of a creative like collective almost, and so like you'd write a song, but it wouldn't necessarily be performed by you. So a lot of the songs had writing credits by other people, or they were covered by one person, then taken on by another person. Like Respect, for example, Aretha Franklin. That's not actually her song; it was Otis Redding's originally.
Yeah, I mean, is that even a cover though? Because it's kind of weird. You cover the song, like you have the song. Obviously, you have the song and the recording, in the music business, and I guess you can cover both really. You can cover the original composition or however it was intended. It's got chords and lyrics and bars and time signatures and all that. But then you can also have you can cover the recording version of it later on. So say you have Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. You can cover Smooth Criminal from did it come out on the record Bad? I think it came out on Bad. It was on Bad. Yeah. So you can cover
I only have it on a greatest hits album that I had when I was a kid.
Pretty sure it's Bad. Anyway, they
trust you.
Yeah, you can cover that version that was produced on the record, or you can cover the Alien Ant Farm version, which is the punk pop version of it. And,
yes.
But at this, maybe if you're covering the Alien Ant Farm version, you're covering both the recording and the song, so it's like It's like you cover both.
Yeah,
I don't know what this hand motion is, but
that's covering both. Apparently.
Covering. Yeah.
Covering both.
It's not. I don't tunnel. No. Anyway.
I think it's interesting with certain songs because they do lend themselves to being covered, or they've been covered so many times that sort of there's not necessarily like a crystallized, like a definitive version of the song anymore, and so then it kind of adds and takes away the pressure, I think, because in a way there's a pressure to put your own original spin on the song, and obviously if you have more versions, there's less wiggle room in terms of what you want to do with it, but at the same time it means you could like also, because so much has been done with a certain song, the pressure's kind of off as well. Like for example, we were talking about the girl from Ipanema. I can't remember.
I think it's like the second most. It's the second most covered song of all time, according to the Adam Neely video.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he put out like a 30-minute video analyzing why it's creepy, like harmonically.
Why it's oh yeah, it's hella creepy. There's loads of it's like major 7 flat 5 chords. If you guys don't know what a major 7 flat 5 chord is, I have my guitar with me,
and we've lost all the non-musician,
which
listeners.
is kind of handy. So basically, a dominant 7. So you got like that kind of chord, which is which sort of sounds kind of bluesy, but then like the dominant 7 flat 5 is that like, which has got like a really kind of weird like
that hits the spot.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think it has because it's in F originally, you have that like, but then like the whole like turnaround is then like when you do like the 3 6 2 5 1, like it's basically like it's that, and then it just moves down, so you get like,
oh god.
So like I think it puts off a lot of people in terms of like just harmonically it's kind of a bit of a weird song. So I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, do we need to frame it around? We're going to talk about cover songs if it wasn't obvious from the title of the podcast. Yeah, I think that's he said it was the second most covered. I actually don't even know what the most covered song of all time is.
What would you like it to be?
What would I like it to be?
Like, if like cynically, what would you like it to be?
Cynically. I would want it to be a Stevie Wonder song that's not Superstition.
Yeah, because like the cynic in me would say it's got to be something like that. I think it's like Superstition by Stevie Wonder, Valerie by Amy Winehouse, or like Wonderwall by Oasis. At least in terms of like Western, like UK music. Like every single open mic night I've been to where I've been like guested on someone else's set, they've been like, oh, do you know Valerie? And it's like, yes I do, because like everyone covers Valerie at some point.
I mean that's like, how do you even measure that? Like surely if Bach wrote music like centuries ago and it's been interpreted over centuries, and surely more humans have covered Bach or certain Bach pieces over the years than people would have covered Valerie.
That's a very good point, and I guess it depends on like
maybe.
what
I don't know.
It depends what you mean as a cover as well. Like, would you define a cover as just like someone covering a song like anywhere, or would you call it like an actual published version of a song so that it's purchasable or downloadable or listenable, not in a live setting? Yeah,
it's weird. I mean, on a basic level, it literally just means when you're playing a song that you didn't write, or interpreting something you didn't record. So even if me and you sat in a room and played I don't know, a song
Bigger Than My Body,
any song, then that's not a Leo Kelly G song. Then that's technically a cover. So maybe recorded versions. Maybe he was talking about that, recorded versions. I guess also in terms of the ease of like understanding, also like recorded versions make more sense as well. I mean, because then you can like I mean, do you think they sort of like when they get covered a lot, you kind of get a bit sick of them. But as it's like, what do you? I guess you can just personally feel sick of a song. Like, say if you're a function musician, you got to play Dancing in the Moonlight, you got to play Superstition, Valerie, Mr. Brightside, like literally every single event. And so you get sick of it that way. But for that person who probably maybe only consumes a bit of music, suddenly hears Mr. Brightside, it's their favorite song ever. Then it's great, and they want to hear it at every single wedding they go to. The one wedding they go to a year,
exactly.
But
I think
I guess we're not really talking about like, but we're talking about like the quality, right? we kind of wanted to go into, because what makes like a good cover song?
Yeah, exactly. I guess a good question to maybe like start with would be why do you think that people cover songs?
Why do we cover songs?
Like why do we take something that someone else has created and go, I'm going to do that as well? As opposed to I'm just going to write my own something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's no one single purpose, but
no, obviously there's loads of different reasons, but like I can think of a few which are kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious first one that I think of is just to like perform some sort of entertainment, and you don't necessarily have to have written all the songs. Like if you're a classical musician, you make a career out of interpreting all types of chamber music. You literally never have to write anything in your life. Maybe for your music theory examination or something like that.
Composition exam, yeah.
Where you make like the worst melodies of all time. But yeah,
classical
literally just for entertainment purposes, really. You know, it's a business for those people.
Yeah,
it's their income. You know, it's their life.
I think classical music's an interesting one because obviously it's a cover. That's the whole kind of the whole point of it. You're playing music from the classical period or the various classical periods, depending on who you're covering or interpreting.
But
it feels so weird, isn't it? To say like I'm going to like. Can you imagine if like
it's just a performance of it?
Like,
you know?
Can you imagine if a classical composer sort of went up like, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play a few covers this evening. I hope you enjoy it." It's kind of like it's just such a weird
dude. That Shostakovich cover was dope, bro.
Yeah,
you know,
like you just don't think of it in that way, but obviously they are. But obviously, I think it serves another purpose in terms of that kind of music because it's keeping the memory of that music alive for future generations. It's getting new people to come, you know, to build an appreciation of that music. And it's similar for, I would argue, maybe less so because I think jazz music obviously it's still being, you can still write new jazz music. Whereas obviously the classical music is from the classical period, and so like you can't like go back in time and write more of it.
Exactly.
Whereas jazz, like it's still a genre of music that is developing, and the whole point of jazz is to be kind of like out there and pushing the envelope of things. Hence, free jazz that we mentioned earlier.
Ultimately. Sorry, I was going to let you. Yeah, maybe finish your point.
I was just going to say that like it's so and similar to a lot of artists that sing in a particular style. I think Michael Bublé is a really good example as well. He sings mostly covers. He's mostly a cover. I know he's got some original stuff, and he sort of comes out of his hibernation cave to release a Christmas album every year of stuff, and then sort of goes back in again.
I mean, I'm pretty sure
months.
It's the same Christmas album every year. It's just you just rediscover it, and it's like, oh, that exists.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's Michael Bublé.
Christmas album's like a whole other thing we should probably not go into, but that's another cover landscape, you know.
Yeah. But his sort of shtick, as it were, is that he's sort of a modern version of like a 1950s crooner, and like there are some really good interviews and videos on YouTube that are worth checking out where he impersonates or talks about how he impersonates other
Love that
artists. Video. Like he talks about like how Elvis Presley uses his sort of really sort of fast vibrato and sort of drops his sort of his voice box down, and sort of he talks about Dean Martin as well, and just he sort of like so in a way it's keeping that kind of style of music alive. Another really good example, which is completely sort of off the scale, is Tommy Emmanuel, who's an amazing acoustic guitar player.
Yeah.
But he is a lot of his sort of he writes original music, and it's absolutely amazing. If you're an acoustic guitarist and you want to sort of be brought down a few pegs or just be really depressed for a couple of days, just listen to Tommy Emmanuel. He's absolutely phenomenal. But he covers Chet Atkins. He covers Mel Travis, and he covers a lot of things. Like he does like a Beatles medley. He does a Jimi Hendrix medley.
I love that Beatles medley.
The Beatles medley is phenomenal, but it means that for people who are unfamiliar with the Beatles, for example, I know it's obviously it's at least for people that I know in my social circle, it's very uncommon for people to have not heard of the Beatles. But my fiance works in a secondary school, and she said that there are kids now who are 11, 12 years old who haven't heard of Queen. They don't know who the Beatles are. So like if they go to a concert like that, it's keeping that music alive for them. And Mel Travis, for example, like I would never have heard of Mel Travis had I not listened to Tommy Emmanuel. And Chet Atkins is that in the same way, like the person who wrote Mr. Sandman, the person who wrote yakety axe or yakety sax as it is when it's played with the saxophone, like all these amazing tunes that are kept alive by people like Tommy Emmanuel. I guess it's another purpose it's another purpose for cover music that goes beyond just playing good songs. Like the songs themselves are sort of bigger than the artist who wrote them. It's kind of these songs need to be kept alive in one way, you know?
Yeah, I find that really interesting because you have these artists. Maybe it's just that's what defines a good and a bad cover, or it completely isn't. But you have, say, Michael Bublé. He sings these songs, and then you go find the original versions of the jazz songs. That's an option. You don't have to do that to appreciate the songs.
No pressure.
At the same
There's
time,
no
you don't
Bublé.
have to listen to Chet Atkins to appreciate Tommy Emmanuel's cover of Chet Atkins.
Yeah.
But when does it become like, okay, that's really good, and then you have like, say, a cover that I really like and enjoy is like a cover of Torn by Natalie. Is it Natalie Imbruglia that she's?
Yeah, Natalie Imbruglia.
Yeah, and it's done by a pop punk band called Neck Deep, from Wales, and it's like,
of all places.
And I mean, I really like the cover as a pop punk fan, but it's not like that's a different category of cover. I'm not going to be like, okay, now I'm going to check out Natalie Imbruglia, and it's going to be like discovering the world of Chet Atkins. It's like, it's a completely
yeah.
So what's the scale? What's
I was at this pop punk gig in Wales.
Yeah, and that just inspired me to become the
whole
biggest
world of Natalie Imbruglia that I'd never experienced before.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be. In fairness, that might be the case for
maybe it'll change someone's
know.
life. We can't rule out. Maybe we're missing out on Natalie Imbruglia.
Maybe we need to check out. We need to do a Natalie Imbruglia deep dive at some point this week and find some of the uncovered gems in her albums.
Yeah. Sorry to any of her any avid fans listening to this.
Yes, I have nothing against Natalie Imbruglia. I think she's great.
Yeah.
But obviously, like to my mind, like she's only known for. I only know her for Torn.
She has another song that's big, right? I forgot what it was.
It's not ironic, is it?
No, that's what's her name? Alanis Morissette.
Yes, sorry.
She has another song. We'll figure it out.
We'll work that one out as we go.
Yeah, but I think a lot of songs do have that ability to make you discover some old tunes that, because ultimately the artist who's covering it, especially on a recorded version that's commercially released, is more than likely something that they like and it has inspired them.
I guess that's it. It's definitely a purpose of covering songs, but I think there's
two sides though. There's the artist and their appreciation of the song and them wanting to keep the legacy of that song as well as maybe their own career as well. But there's also cover songs are done because it's what the listener wants to hear. At the end of the day, it's like covering Valerie. It's because people want to hear Valerie at a wedding.
I guess also not even
dichotomies. The dichotomy.
Yeah, not even just in terms of wedding and function bands. There are people who make careers on YouTube as cover artists. Boise Avenue is a really good example.
They were the OGs.
Yeah, exactly. Where like I'm not necessarily interested in original music that Boise Avenue writes. Like I just like his covers, and he's obviously famous as a cover guy.
People make entire careers on YouTube just doing covers, like Scary Pockets and Pomplamoose and was it a Postmodern Jukebox? That was a massive thing. They just reinterpret songs as other genres and
exactly. And I guess that's another side of covering a song, isn't it, as well? Like if you feel you have an interpretation of a song that you'd like to add to it, or a different spin that you can put on it, either stylistically or it's mostly stylistically, but I guess you can sort of add a different meaning if you sort of add a certain style to a certain song. You can, if you have, for example, I'm not going to pick something sort of, but like if you have a song that is has like happy lyrics, for example, you can play it under something sad or more sort of ominous, and it's sort of the dichotomy between the two sort of gives the song a different depth. Or again, sort of sad songs with happy chords, obviously put it really, really basically, it just adds an interesting level of depth that you wouldn't necessarily sort of have before.
Scary Pockets, I'm waiting for that funk Phoebe Bridgers cover. Give it to me, man.
Oh, I'd love that so much. Such a Phoebe Bridgers fan. But like I was actually watching a really interesting version of. So it wasn't a version. It was a episode of one of Corey Wong's videos on YouTube where he was talking about the creation of the song Bluebird, which he did with Chris Thiele, and he was saying that like he actually originally wrote that for as like a horn piece, and to have it as a hornheads arrangement, and because obviously in lockdown he wanted the availability of music is a bit less. He wanted to sort of try it acoustically instead. So like you can almost do not a cover of your own song, but there are different arrangements of a song to give that kind of different sense of musical feeling. I think a really good example is not of someone covering their own song, but if you listen to I Will Always Love You, obviously made really, really famous by Whitney Houston in The Bodyguard. And there are memes, you know, there's that the thing of that kid like being hit by the spinning thing and just being like, and like flying away. But the original song is a Dolly Parton song, and it's like it's a lot quieter, and it's got a nice harmonica part to it, and it's you know, the lyric "I will always love you" can obviously be reinterpreted for different situations as well, in terms of like, I can't remember what the situation is in The Bodyguard, but obviously originally with Dolly Parton it was she left her original manager, and so the song was written to her manager to say like, you know, I'm moving on, but I will always love you because of, you know, obviously all the stuff that he did for her. And so like songs can be reinterpreted that way as well.
It's I love that when it's like people find out songs, I mean we've been talking about it, but people find out songs are actually recorded or written by other people, it's like such a definitive version that you don't really think of, like you think of the recording more than the composition, you know, like with Prince's Nothing Compares to You. Loads of people wouldn't, I mean, I guess it is common knowledge that it is Prince wrote that song for, what's her name?
Sinead O'Connor. Nothing. Oh, such a good song.
But the Prince version is like freaking amazing as well.
You
have people writing for other people, writing a song for them. Loads of stuff is written by other people, you know, like all that Motown stuff. I mean, a lot of it was written by the artists themselves as well, but a lot of it was written by other people as well.
A really good example of that is Carole King and James Taylor.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, they started off as songwriters. I can't remember which record label they wrote for, but they would just churn out songs for other people. Who's the other one? Burt Bacharach and Hal David as well, who wrote for they did what's the song? Close to You by the Carpenters, and like so many other hit songs from sort of like the 60s and the 70s. They were Burt Bacharach would write the music and Hal David would write the lyrics. And so they were like a writing duo that sort of worked with a lot of artists as well. Absolutely prolific, like both, like all four of them, James Taylor and Carole King as well. I think what I find quite interesting with covers as well is kind of like it's a timing thing, that a lot of I was trying to think of one of the songs that came to mind, sort of with the whole the surge in the Black Lives Matter movement this year, that a lot of songs that were sort of famous or made famous in the original civil rights struggle in the late 1960s, the fact that like a lot of the things are still prominent now, sort of it adds a sort of a haunting weight to a lot of the songs as well. If you know, if certain songs are covered at certain times, it can really just capture the voice of a certain time or things like that. Like What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, for example, was relevant then, and you could argue is still relevant now. And so like I think it's another reason to cover a song as well, is that like if the message of the song sort of can almost cuts through, you know, like another it's less so in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, but Blown in the Wind, the Bob Dylan song, like sort of the one that's the, you know, sort of the 9, like there are 9 questions in the song, and it's this absolutely, and they're such sort of powerful questions, but like even now the questions are still relevant. So like I think Bob Dylan he's an interesting one in terms of covers, because I think he's almost more famous for his covers than he is for his originals. I've not listened to that much Bob Dylan, but I know so much of his music vicariously through listening to
other people's versions,
like Jimi Hendrix, Adele, Peter, Paul and Mary, Bob Dylan, Dave Matthews Band. Like so many people have covered Bob Dylan songs because of how poignant the lyrics are, and because, you know, they still hold a weight today, and they're not devoid of the time they're written in, but like the questions and the themes are they're so broad that they're almost applicable at any time, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah, or like Denzel Curry covering Rage Against the Machine's "Killing in the Name," and you're just like, what?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like,
exactly that.
Yeah, still valid today. Oh. It's such a wonderful world, and it's like we obviously we write songs and stuff, and a lot of our favorite artists write and perform their own music, which is I guess it is a sort of like a 20th century thing. Like you don't have, I mean, I guess you have classical composers writing the music, and then they get an orchestra to interpret it for them because they literally can't play all the instruments.
Yeah.
But that's not really a cover, I guess. But what was my point? Oh yeah, so it's just an interesting world of like just cover. Like it is such a huge part of music that you don't really. Maybe I underestimate the size and the amount of output there has been from cover music over it. Like just reinterpreting music is just a huge thing, you know. Yeah. Whereas sometimes you're just like, oh, it's just a cover, you know, it's just a cover of that song. Whereas covers are, you know, they make or break careers sometimes, or people's livelihoods. Like you can make an entire career out of playing covers.
I think it's also a way of sort of putting you in a similar ballpark to other people. Like as a songwriter and a performing musician, if I play at an open mic night, for example, when you have 3 songs to sort of state your case, I kind of, part of me likes to play a cover to begin with, to sort of say, okay, well, I'm similar to this sort of artist. So I really love doing, You Can Call Me Al, for example, because I'm a really big Paul Simon fan. But then it's kind of like,
check it on YouTube.
it's a very old cover. It's like 6 years old now. But like it puts you in that sort of ballpark. And like when we do, for those of you who don't know, Johnny plays in my band as well. He's a fantastic bass player in the LKG band.
You don't need to say that.
We do a lot, but we do quite a lot of Theo Katzman covers, because again, it's sort of like he's another singer-songwriter sort of in the same sort of vein. So like it puts you in not necessarily a musical conversation, but like in a way it can. If you can do a song justice and cover it, it almost puts you on a similar level to the person you're covering.
Yeah, another really good. You're trying to get deep into the song. You're trying to grasp like exactly what they got in that song. You know, where what kind of darts they threw. And I don't know where this dart analogy came from, but I'm like, yeah, get it as well. I mean, I guess to that point, I guess even just learning how to do music, play music, learn music, it usually comes from learning reinterpreting music in the first place. You're not going to start learning guitar and be like, okay, I'm going to compose like the greatest guitar piece of all time.
Out of nowhere, I'm just going to start.
I'm not going to learn any blues, you know. Who is BB King, you know, like
it's a good point.
So yeah, I guess for anyone to pick up music, you're going to have to quote cover something, whether you cover it to release it as a commercially released recording or make a composition that will last centuries because of multiple reinterpretations of it is another thing.
Or just physically as kinesthetic research or harmonic research. Like if you want to learn guitar and you want to learn chords, like learning them in a progression that's already in a song is quite useful. You know, and I don't know about you, and I know you started learning music a lot earlier than I did, but part of the reason that what drove me to music in the first place was the desire to
be David Sides. Wink, wink.
That's another.
We're getting deep into Leo's musical past here. If anyone doesn't know, David Sides was one of the OG YouTube piano cover.
Yes, he was.
Channels.
And I covered loads of his stuff when I was sort of 12 and 13 years old. So there's a Kiss Kiss cover by Chris Brown
is
if you want to do a deep dive into YouTube. And there's also a Far Away cover by Nickelback on piano as well.
Which is
on
a cover horribly
of David out of tune piano that we got from our friends in Lancashire. So like it was travelled all the way down the M1, bumped around. We took it in. It was horribly out of tune, but obviously persevered. But yeah, one of the reasons, you know, like that was part of the reason that drove me to music in the first place, was a desire to emulate what I was hearing and the desire to, you know, to play it as well and to be able to replicate it. And so like, I think it's almost a natural progression of someone learning an instrument is you're going to learn to cover something at some point as opposed to compose all your own material from nothing. You know?
It's interesting. It's also, and I guess it also comes from like, it's not like Bach had nothing to go on before he wrote music, you know. So it all comes from interpreting the past and how much you want to interpret, because you literally don't have to interpret anything to be able to make music. But you have to interpret something.
Exactly, yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like nowadays there's also just like covers that it's not really like you have to like have a deep knowledge to interpret it, you know. It's like, I'm sure Neck Deep knows about pop music, but they didn't have to learn that from Torn, you know.
No, exactly.
But then there are some that are, you know, that are foundational. Like you can see that, you can literally see where they get their sound from. It's like D'Angelo covering Prince, he just absolutely idolizes. So She's Always in My Hair. He's done other Prince covers, and
Sometimes It Snows in April, a very touching one at Prince's funeral.
Well, I think it was on Jimmy Fallon's show, but yeah, it was
Tribute,
right after he died. Yeah, but yeah, you can literally see. Okay, they're covering this person because they obviously were inspired by them by some way. Like some of my favorites are, I mean, Leanne La Havas came out with Weird Fishes recently, which is did a cover of Weird Fishes by Radiohead, and that's not even like they were influenced. She was probably not influenced by Radiohead's sound specifically. But more maybe the songwriting and the chords or the melodies or even just the feeling that Radiohead were trying to tap into. You know? Yeah.
I think another one is I think it's interesting as well because there are like sort of musical progressions as well, like to go from Jimi Hendrix, for example, which is kind of a weird one because like he did so many Bob Dylan covers, like All Along the Watchtower is a Bob Dylan song. Hey Joe was written by the Leaves originally, I think, so that's not even a Jimi Hendrix song. But like obviously Little Wing was his, but then that was covered by Stevie Ray Vaughan and everyone else as well. But like even John Mayer does like he's done Boulder's Love on Continuum as well, and it's almost like, you know, it shows it touches on what I was talking about earlier as well, because like if you cover a Jimi Hendrix song and you release it, like in a way you're saying, you know, I want to be thought of in a similar way as Jimi Hendrix, you know, I want to be in a similar conversation to Jimi Hendrix, which I would argue someone like John Mayer and Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, you could put them in a similar like ballpark in terms of you know, some of the best guitarists of their generations, but it's also, you know, just a profound love for the music as well, I think, because, you know, like if you're going to cover a song, like you've got to like it a decent amount, you know, to cover it, kind of thing. Like if I were to cover, like to put a Paul Simon cover on the record that I did, like it would be on one hand to, you know, to say, like, you know, like I would love to be thought of in a similar way as, you know, whether it will happen or not, like I'd love to be, you know, mentioned in the same breath as Paul Simon or something like that as a songwriter. But it's also a profound, you know, love for the music as well, in terms of like I've grown up listening to Paul Simon, like it's part of my, you know, it's in my bones, like the music, because I've listened to it so much, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting because there's also like, obviously these are covers that were inspiring and were good, but there are also covers where like this should never have happened, you know. Like
yes, there are quite a few of those as well. At least in our opinion, probably shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of these off the top of my head. Maybe that's just because I like too much music, which is the downfall of my entire life. But
the eternal musical fence sitter, Johnny Chung.
Yeah, well, not fence sitter. I'm the eternal music stan-ner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some people would argue. I mean, I love the Michael McDonald versions of the Motown songs. He's released not one, but two. He's also released 5 Christmas albums, which are basically all cover songs.
That's amazing.
But yeah, 2 of his Motown cover albums. I mean, he's very much influenced by like a lot of black music and Motown music and blues music, which I think there's a podcast called 1613. By the New York Times. One of the episodes goes into
1619.
Sorry, almost there. For 6 years off.
I think it's the date when the first slaves arrived in America. I think that's why 1619 is important.
There you go. 1619. Go listen to that podcast. It's incredible.
It's amazing. The best
clearly,
6 hours of your life you'll spend.
Clearly made such an impact on me that I could remember the year that the slaves arrived in America.
But you remember Michael McDonald, and that's the main
thing. I remember Michael McDonald and how he was influenced by black music. Great, Johnny. Great stuff. I'm going to post this on the internet. Anyway. But yeah, some people would be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing. Like Michael McDonald is the cheesiest person. Like Michael Bublé, what is he doing covering
Michael McBublé?
Michael McBublé. There is what's his name? Paul Anka. Have I told you about Paul Anka?
No.
He's like another he's another Bublé type, but maybe a bit less a bit less irrationally hated by people. But he's done like these crazy covers of like Eye of the Tiger, but a big band version of it. and just like some people. I mean, as a jazz lover and as a lover of the song Eye of the Tiger, I'm like, sure, this is great, interesting. But some people will be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because like I think like it all comes down to interpretation and sort of personal taste. I think. To me, something like The Eye of the Tiger, like it's a rock song, and so to take it out of a rock context, it'd have to be extremely special for me to appreciate it in the same way. I think, and like as a big band version, for example, like, I can't imagine myself. It's the Eye of the Tiger. Like, no,
it's it's good. I'll send it to you.
Send it over and change my mind, please.
There was another. They did a couple other ones as well, but I'll send it to you. It's just hilarious, really.
Yeah, I think the ones that sort of I've got like 5 here that like I say bad cover songs in.
Can I try and convince you that they're good?
Please do. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm more than down for this. And I don't mean bad as in like they're bad musically. I just think personally for me, I prefer the original. For reasons that I'll give. So the first one is Mad World by Gary Jules, which I know a lot of people really, really like, and lots of bassists on YouTube like covering and doing crazy fret-tapped versions of as well.
Is Gary Jules a bassist?
No, he's a singer.
The original, it was written by Gary Jules.
No, it was written by Tears for Fears.
Okay.
So the original is a Tears for Fears song, but it's covered by Gary Jules, and that has become a version in itself that is, a lot more like it's a lot quieter and a lot more haunting. And weirdly enough, even Tears for Fears prefer that version to their own. But personally, like I prefer it as the big band original version, just because I think it has more of a sort of energy to it. Do you want to change your mind on that one?
Not really. I mean, I kind of agree with you there, but each to their own, I think.
Again, personal preference, and it is a really nice piano song to learn as well. And I did learn it when I was growing up, despite preferring the original. Okay, that's one. Okay, the next one is Mrs. Robinson, obviously a famous Simon and Garfunkel song from The Graduate, covered by Lemonheads, which is a pop punk version of it.
Never heard of it, but I'm sure it's great.
It's I can't remember who showed it to me, but
it's also horrible at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. Well, I get it. Like I think pop punk is a beast unto itself. And it has its own sort of world and rules and everything. But like I think there are some songs that like I just don't personally think fit, and I think like it's such an iconic song for so many reasons in The Graduate that like I think like Simon and Garfunkel is hard enough to cover anyway, because it's so iconic. But then can
you appreciate that someone else might enjoy it?
Yes, I can perfectly. As I say, like this is only in my opinion. Like
because I feel like there is
someone else might enjoy it.
There is a line of thought where sometimes when these covers happen, and people are like, "This should never have happened, and no one should appreciate it." Like no. By all means, appreciate these songs. Like this is only my opinion. That like, and it's not that I don't think they're bad covers. They're just personally I prefer the originals. So, like to take another example, like that I think is a fantastic cover is Vanilla Sky's "1,000 Miles," the Vanessa Carlton cover. Thank you. I was going to say Vanessa Hudgens, but that's not. No, Vanessa Carlton cover. But like they put the piano riff onto an electric guitar, which is really, really pretty, and they sort of make it heavier as well. And I think it's brilliant, and it really works. But with the Lemonheads one, it just kind of misses the point for me. There's Big Yellow Taxi by Counting Crows, which is originally a Joni Mitchell song. Definitely original, but very biased.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, like it might just, I think it depends on what you grew up listening to as well. Like I grew up listening to Joni Mitchell and Big Yellow Taxi, and I'm sorry. When you sort of go to like list off a load of Joni Mitchell songs and then your mind goes blank. But like Big Yellow Taxi,
Help Me, In Case of You.
Yeah, exactly.
All those.
Coming on Christmas, and The Circle Game. There you go. They're all coming now. But again, that might just be a case of like it being.
You just have to. Your brain is just loading the sheer amount of content, like
just buffering,
the quality,
just buffering
the literature quality. It's a big file size to load a Joni Mitchell song into.
It's a big file size to load Joni Mitchell songs.
Time,
exactly.
It's buffering.
Yeah, both sides now. It's another phase. Sorry, they're just gonna pop up sporadically through the podcast now, which I can only apologise for.
Anymore.
And the last one, I guess, would be maybe the Disturbed version of. No, that's not true.
The Disturbed version of Sound of Silence.
Of Sound of Silence.
Ha ha ha.
You're gonna change your mind on that one. Again, like this is from the perspective of a Simon and Garfunkel fan, like a diehard Simon and Garfunkel fan. But like
you prefer the original.
Yeah.
I definitely prefer the original. I think the Disturbed version is great. I think maybe some people put it up on a higher pedestal than it is. Like, this is the greatest cover of all time.
Like I think it has more hits on YouTube than the original.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Which kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, and
personally, because then like I can just imagine conversations where like you type in Sound of Silence. So like Sound of Silence has 630 million hits on YouTube versus the original Sound of Silence, which has got 13 million.
It's
which is just mind blowing.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think those can coexist.
As I say, they were welcome to coexist, but they're songs that like I think I personally prefer the originals.
Any more covers you want to shout out before we almost wrap it up with our final thought question?
Final little bit.
Thought question. That's a great segment that I've just come up with. Any more thought questions?
Any more thought questions as opposed to
as opposed to
mouth questions or
just.
What other fantastic covers have we got? I mean, there's like Alleluia by Jeff Buckley, amazing cover. I Shot the Sheriff by Eric Clapton, really good version. He plays it at Crossroads most years, and it's fantastic. Respect is originally an Otis Redding song, not an Aretha Franklin song. Oh, sorry, we mentioned that already.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think we did, but I think Stevie Wonder also has a version of Respect. It's pretty good as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's no Aretha Franklin, but
Heard It Through the Grapevine is actually a Gladys Knight song originally.
Oh. Actually, I think I do know that because it's in this James Jamerson bass book that I have, and I started playing it, and I was like, I wanted to play it to the Marvin Gaye version, and then it was actually a transcription of the Gladys Knight version. I was like, oh, okay, I got to find the Gladys Knight version to play it.
Mind blown.
Yeah, that's how I found out, which is quite interesting.
And I guess the last one that always comes up is "Dancing in the Moonlight" by Top Loader, which is originally a King Harvest song. That one's interesting because I think like it's at least to my mind, and again, I guess it depends sort of with a lot of the covers and like sort of how you experience them when you're born as well. Like if you're born in if you were born say like pre-Adele and like Make You Feel My Love from Bob Dylan, then like hearing that is always going to sound like a cover, whereas like if you hear the other one first, then obviously you get used to that, and then hearing the original then sounds strange.
Fair.
Like I listened to Dancing in the Moonlight by King Harvest after having listened to Top Loader for years, and it just sounds really strange now, like listening to it. Yeah. But obviously people, for whatever the space was between Top Loaders coming out and King Harvest, that was the song, and that was the version of the song, and then all of a sudden this other one sort of comes along and usurps it and gets used in all the
almost like exponential
in all the function band songs ever in the UK, at least that I've most of the ones that I've played, it's a DJ song or a song that you play.
Yeah, cool. Couple I want to shout out before we move on.
Yeah, go on.
I've got a recent version of Al Green's song "Take Me to the River," which was covered by Talking Heads. Incredible cover. It's also like not a direct sort of thing you'd think would happen. Unexpected, unexpected collaboration. And that's really good. Shout that out. Leanne Havas. She also has a Aretha Franklin cover. I Say a Little Prayer. It's really, really good. Also PJ Morton's How Deep Is Your Love, which we performed together
With
before.
Yeba. Yeah,
love
that's
that
fantastic.
version. Love both versions. So,
Yeah.
featuring Yeba. And and just check out every single cover that Stevie Wonder's ever done, because everything he's touched is good. Cool. We should probably wrap up in a sec. We're trying to keep these
Slightly shorter.
pods, bites rather than buffets. It's not a Sonic buffet.
It's not a Sonic bite. It's not a Sonic meal. It's a Sonic bite.
Okay, so let's go with so we've got a question here. What are like two things that you would like to happen in? How do I phrase this question? Like an artist you'd like to see cover another song. Like what's a cover? What's like 2 or 3 covers you want to happen?
Okay, yeah.
Whether they will happen or not.
I would love to see someone like Theo Katzman do a Kesha cover. Would be really, really interesting.
He's actually written a song. No, he's recorded, and I don't think he co-wrote. But he recorded a song with Kesha once.
Oh, he did backing vocals, didn't he?
Yeah, it's like backing vocals and maybe a bit of. Actually, I think it was just backing vocals.
So that is they've had contact. So that's possible potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, I can say okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
And then I would love to see. We talk so much about guitar on this channel. Obviously, as a guitar player, that kind of makes sense.
Makes sense.
But I'd love to see someone like, I'm just trying to think of all the really good piano players at the moment who are sort of around. Like Gavin DeGraw, for example. Like I'd love to see Gavin DeGraw do like a Billy Joel cover or something. Like Scenes from an Italian Restaurant by Gavin DeGraw would be a really completely out there, and like I don't know if people would like it, but it'd be interesting to see sort of like some of the older music being carried on through the legacy of sort of younger artists and sort of people coming up as musicians and singer-songwriters, and sort of doing both of them.
Fair.
What about you? What are two covers that you'd love to see?
One dream cover I'd love to see is The National cover something
off the Taylor Swift album,
kind of 80s. That's happened already. No, it hasn't actually. But although that would be amazing.
That would be kind of cool.
I'd love to see them properly record.
2 octaves down.
Like properly record a Talking Heads song or something. I'm gonna just keep talking about Talking Heads, but they did a version of Heaven in London. I didn't go see it, but a couple years ago, that's on YouTube. And there's like a grainy fan footage of it. And the song Heaven is just like the perfect song for the National cover to cover. So I'd love to see them, because now I know that they appreciate the song. I feel like that can happen. Maybe they won't be inspired to do it, but I feel like I just want to have a good studio quality version of that. That would be amazing. And I'd love to see Wolfpack just cover even more songs. I think Wolfpack's definitely just they do a lot of covers live. A lot of quite like just well-known Motown songs, and that's the era that they're very much influenced by.
Also, like their cover of Something in the Way She Moves as well by the Beatles. I really, really like.
Yeah.
With a harmonized guitar solo in the middle. It's just fantastic.
Bernard Purdie on the drums.
Bernard Purdie on the drums.
Yeah. But I'd love to see those. I also just want to be surprised, I think. And just surprised with the quality of it, and also just I guess the whole point is just to be aware of the things that are happening, being aware of the context of people covering songs, and I feel like it gives me a greater appreciation of both the artist that's covering the song and also the songs that they're covering themselves, and giving it an extra life. Every time someone covers a song, I think there's so much power there, because it almost extends the lifespan of a composition or of a recording. And I think that's the magic there. If we're to conclude on anything.
Absolutely, and long may the songs continue with new life each time. I guess the last thing would be so which are your favourite cover songs? Let us know in the comment section below. Which cover songs do you think that you're not such a fan of? Let us know those as well if you think there are any that we missed.
The worst. We want to hear the best and the worst, and there's no in between.
Yeah, exactly.
Best cover ever or worst cover ever.
Yeah. In this, especially in this age of like, it's just so true. It's like best or worst covers. It can't be anything. It's like, that was all right.
If
like,
politics are
the
extremists,
best
so
or
are opinions.
the worst. And also, what are your dream covers and songs that you'd love to hear covered by other artists? Let us know all of them in the comments section below, because we'd love to make a list.
Just message me. I'm lonely.
But yeah, let us know.
I'm kidding. I'm fine.
You got me. It's fine.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Sonic Bytes. If you liked what you heard, give us a like or follow us on Spotify, Anchor FM, or wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a comment at YouTube at Leo Kelly G Music, Instagram at Sonic Bytes, and Twitter at Sonic Bytes Pod. We'll have a new episode coming soon, so stay tuned.